Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Backlog Banter. Today is a very special day in Nintendo history. Good old Super Mario Odyssey is 3 years old, and we have both played the game. It's true.
Believe it or not.
At some point in the last 3 years. We did a recording of this earlier, but this is going to be the far superior version. We are going to talk about our experience with the game of the past 3 years, how the game has sort of progressed in the zeitgeist, what our experience was it when we first played it. A little bit of pre-release hype, just generally thoughts about the game. And Abram, what do you think about Super Mario Odyssey?
Well, it's funny you should ask because that's what I came here to talk about today.
Yeah.
Super Mario Odyssey is a game that I was incredibly hyped for pre-release.
Yeah.
My preload happened. I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. I have to get up at 6 for school, and I thought, hey, I could sleep for another hour and a half, or hey, I could play an hour and a half Odyssey before I'm supposed to get up and shower and have my morning nutrition before I go off to fucking sophomore year of high school, maybe. I think because I was like 16 when the game came out. The point is, I really loved that game on launch day.
Yeah.
I loved it through launch. There was a humongous windstorm that cascaded through mid-coast Maine and knocked out the power. So there's like a 4 or 5 day period where we didn't have power, but I had a Nintendo Switch and a battery bank.
Damn.
And I played a shit ton of Odyssey in handheld mode. I loved it. I've played the game many times since. I've speedrun it. I've done Taka 2% runs. I've done a lot of different business.
Cool.
Now, we're in a kind of interesting point because 3D All Stars just came out, so we
True.
can contextualize our feelings look at that, having freshly, well, for you, played for the first time a lot of older 3D Mario games. For me, revisited games that I grew up with and played a shit ton before Odyssey, but hadn't played in a while. So my thoughts have changed a little bit.
Yeah. I am someone who hadn't played any other 3D Mario games until I played Odyssey. So when I saw that first trailer, I was just kind of my socks were knocked way off and they were sent to Timbuktu, mailed back. I put them on, they were knocked off again. But it's because I didn't have experience with the series, and Super Mario Odyssey playing it was just such a transformative experience for me as a video game player because I wasn't super experienced with 3D platformers in general. I mean, I think really the only ones I played were like probably Jack and Daxter,
Sure.
and I don't know, a couple other ones. But playing Super Mario Odyssey, I was just addicted to it. I 100% of the game. I have 100% again since I've played through it plenty of times, done speed runs like you said. I've tried speed runs. I've just dicked around the game, but it's certainly a game that I have a lot of experience with, and it is my number 8 favorite game of all time, number 8, and my number 1 favorite Nintendo game of all time. So I say I like it.
I can't remember where it is in my top 50, so keep in mind, card in the corner to our top 50 games of all time, combined one top 100. Watch that, come back and comment below and let me know what number in my top 50 Super Mario Odyssey
There's
is.
no other way for Abram to find out where it is.
Absolutely no other way.
No.
However, so like I said, I really love this game. But I think that as time has progressed, I've crystallized some feelings about it.
Sure.
There's been some rumbles in the Nintendo jungle as people have thought more about Odyssey as it has been out for longer, and I have found myself being in the crowd that really enjoys the game but takes issue somewhat with its structure on repeated visits. And we got in the mudness a little bit when we tried to record last time, so we're gonna try to smooth it out. So my thesis essentially is that
Okay.
3D Mario has always been non-linear, right? And mission-based.
Sure.
By contrast, this game feels sandbox-based and collectathon-like a Banjo-Kazooie or some of those other N64 era platformers.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the 3D Mario game that synthesizes the both of those together the best is Sunshine, because Sunshine has the bigger shine missions that have a little bit more going on in terms of design. And at the same time, they have the blue coins, which allow you to run around the locations and explore and collect and do much, much simpler challenges. A blue coin boils down to, okay, platforming around, I found, the fucking paint X that I have to squirt, and then I get the blue coin, right?
Yeah.
So it incentivizes exploration, but there's not much of a structure around it.
Mm-hmm.
So Odyssey, its moons, I feel by and large, don't have that bigger structure that appeals to me on repeat visits. When I go back to a Super Mario 64, I love going back to it because I love fighting King Bob-omb, and I like doing the red coin missions, and I like all of these missions I remember. Same when I go back to Galaxy, same when I go back to Sunshine. They have these larger moments that Nintendo sculpted that I like to go back to. At the same time, I have the more explorative, smaller things to look forward to with like the blue coins.
Mhm.
I feel on my repeat visits to Odyssey, the act of getting a lot of these moons is so simple. It does boil down to, okay, there's a moon over here. You got to feel with HD Rumble, ground pound, and grab it. I feel that that gets a little too simplistic on repeat playthroughs. So
Sure.
while I still am able to love the game's creativity and love its movement, I wish that it had more of those sculpted moments like we've got in the first three games that I want to go back to, because I love like the Kukateel fight and I love going down into the underground cavern in Toast Arena to do that mission. But I
Sure.
just didn't feel like there was enough of that stitching the game together. So when I go back, the appeal is just different than what I prefer in the older Mario games, which doesn't mean that I like this any less. This is my either my second or third favorite 3D Mario. It just means from a replayability perspective, I don't want to go back to this one in the same way I want to go back to a Sunshine or I want to go back to a Galaxy. But on a pound for pound basis, that first 25, 30 hours with Odyssey,
Yeah.
I think are perhaps superior to a lot of those other games. But with the in terms of the game's tail, I would rather go back to the others.
Yeah. And I certainly respect that. And I understand your point a lot better now than we were discussing it
Yeah,
earlier, kind of going in circles. But I do have to say that from my perspective, as someone who didn't grow up with the other 3D Marios, and maybe that's where my perspective differs, is because this was the first one that I really got into. And I just I love the other games. I have Sunshine 64, which are the other two I've really put time into as well in my top 50. I like those games a lot. Quite in the corner to our Sunshine review. But this game just has so much more for me in terms of, in my perspective, the replayability and the just the fact that you have so much freedom, that I don't see the appeal of going
sure.
back to a game where I know exactly what I have to do through the entire thing, like 64. Okay, you're going to go pretty much the exact same route this year. I got at the game for Bomb Battlefield, but there's so much freedom in planning your route and discovering optimizations, which is why the speedrunning community for this game is so vibrant to this day. And just the openness and the freedom of, okay, there are a ton of simple moons, but you don't have to grab them. But if
Sure.
you want to, that can speed you on to other kingdoms quicker. It gives you a little bit more flexibility in how you want to approach the game, because you can just go straight for the more story-based missions where you have to go through a certain series of challenges, pop up, get the triple moon. It does the flip in the middle of the kingdom, which I do think is a really cool structure idea, is that the kingdoms have a middle boss fight, and then they change the layout and
Yeah.
accessibility of certain areas. I think that's pretty cool. But I feel that for me, those triple moons, more linear based missions are equivalent to the 64 and Sunshine stars and shines. But I do understand that, wanting to play through something a little more scripted is a different appeal. But this game's strongest suit, I think, is that it does give you so much flexibility in your creativity, whether you prefer that on a first play or repeat playthroughs. There's just so much. They have so much creativity, and so many moons are just one-off mechanics, one-off areas that you can go to, and it's just so much fun to explore, because there's so much incentive to check every nook and cranny, check the environmental cues that they're giving you to try to tease you in certain directions. And this game feels so crafted in its smaller moments that if it just feels impactful no matter what you're doing. And I think that's really why the game connects to me on a greater scale, and why I've 100%ed it multiple times.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I think what you're saying is really in line with what the game is trying to do.
Yeah.
I think most clearly, because that freedom really is interesting. And even if I wish that freedom had been contextualized differently, when you take it for what it is, being that more sandbox experience, it's really interesting the way the game becomes designed. Because I played about 40 minutes of it this morning just to get a little refresher. Because even though
Mhm.
I've played this game many, many times, it had been a little while, and I'm able to blitz through the game
Yeah.
really quickly. And the reason being is because I've become so accustomed to the way Cappy moves and how empowering he is
Yeah.
and how the gameplay feels, that, like you were saying, I can pick and choose what I want to do. I can get into Cascade and I can do Dino Skip to immediately be with the brutal fight, and
Yeah.
then grab one other moon down the on the beginning and jet off. And so from that perspective, I think it's really interesting. At the same time, for me, it lessens the value a little bit, or the scope or the pacing. and it exchanges that for this freedom, which makes the game really interesting. I think stand out from the other ones.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that puts it in line with what I necessarily want going back to the game.
Yeah, and I think something we touched on earlier is just that this game is so different from the other ones in terms of its structure, and that's kind of interesting. I am curious and excited to see where they take the Mario formula next, especially the 3D
Sure.
sandbox. You know, they tiddled around with more linear things in Galaxy and Galaxy 2, and then even stronger linearity in the 3D games, 3D World and Land. But then they completely flipped it on its head and went to Odyssey, which is more open than any of the other ones. But what are they going to do in the future? Are they going to go for an Odyssey 2 that is more of this? Are they going to try to mesh the formulas together? Like you said, sort of go more with Sunshine, which has those larger moments with smaller things scattered around. But I think that this is a good midpoint for the Mario 3D Mario franchise.
Yeah.
Hopefully that this can be worked back into those other formulas and sort of mesh together. And I think that there could be a really compelling format on their hands that ends up appeasing both audiences.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going to take it next. Card the corner to our video about the future of the Nintendo Switch. My personal headcanon, if you will, is that we won't get an Odyssey 2 because it has been now 3 full years with not even a tease.
Sure.
Koizumi did something so radically different with Odyssey compared to what the series was. I think that kind of spirit is going to lead him in a completely different direction with Mario in the future.
Yeah.
And I would kind of be excited by that.
Yeah, no, same here.
For as great as Galaxy 2 is and how it's a more refined experience, I still kind of think it lives in the shadow of Galaxy 1 because that game felt so fresh.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious what he does, but I think it's that freshness that's really worth talking about in Odyssey. The way that every kingdom really either subverts a traditional Mario aesthetic or just invents one that is completely ridiculous and in some ways more interesting than what we've ever seen before.
Yeah, and something that, you know, it's interesting to experience games that are so fundamentally similar but have different themes. One of my favorite things about Sunshine is the fact that it is so thematically consistent. You can see worlds or areas in the background of the other worlds, and it all is themed around vacation. But then Odyssey, I love for its diversity. I love the fact that you can pop over to Luncheon Kingdom, which is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense, but I love it.
Yeah.
And you get the castle fight. What's the name of the kingdom? The Ruined Kingdom. The Ruined Kingdom, which is one of the low points of the game, one of the high points in terms of creativity. It's a weird pro and con balance there, but the game does revel in the fact that they just had so many goddamn ideas, and that extends to its mechanics, it extends to its movement, it extends to its theming and the world design. And the fact that each kingdom is so thematically consistent in itself. They have inhabitants that have their own homes and their ecosystems with different creatures that interact with one another. And I think that's just really cool. And it feels like each world is its own little place, so much more than the 64 worlds are just like things. And I think that's what the game was going for. But I think that this game has they win it. I think that this game has so much more going for it in terms of its creativity.
It's also a testament to just how good all of the ideas are because neither of those are my favorite kingdom. Yeah, my favorites are Metro Kingdom and Lost Kingdom.
Yeah, for me, I think I have to go with Metro Kingdom and either Luncheon or Sand Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean that just speaks to the fact that, like we were talking about in our Sunshine review, Sunshine has so many great ideas, but sometimes its ideas just don't get the play they deserve. The Chuckster can go fuck himself.
Yeah.
The blooper surfing can be wacky. Watermelon Festival, right? There's ideas that they throw against the wall, but not everything sticks. I think almost everything sticks in Odyssey.
Yeah, and I think that's a testament to the polish that this game has. It is so diverse in its mission structure and the amount of things that you can just find a door in a cranny and find a whole new thing to explore that never shows up again. But it always feels like they put care into it and design. And there's a hidden moon in almost every smaller section, which I think is really cool. And it gives you a greater deal of wanting to pay attention to what's around you. Actually, I ran off steam on that point, so throw me another one. Throw me a bone.
How about I throw you the game's best aspect from a playability perspective, which is Mario's physics?
Yes.
Which I think have never been better.
Yeah,
I don't think I think that every game has an appeal to it.
Yeah.
None of them, I think, empower the player the way that this game does. And that's partially Mario's inherent moveset, and it's partially Cappy.
Yeah.
One problem I have with the Galaxy Spin is that it feels more like an assist move than an assist, but also a tool.
Sure.
Flood feels like a tool, but he can fall a little bit too much into assist. I feel how he
Hmm.
kind of makes jumping obsolete. Cappy allows you to save yourself, sure, but Cappy also allows you to do fucking ignorant things.
Yeah.
You can be an absolute degenerate. You can touch 15% of the level if you want to. The other 85% of surfaces can go fuck themselves because you don't need them. Because there's so much flexibility given by Mario's moveset that the skill ceiling here is so high,
Yeah.
but it's also accessible to climb up.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I can't I'm just never gonna get good at Sunshine.
Yeah.
I'm just never going
Sure.
to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a feeling that I can keep getting better, and every time I play, I get a better handle of how to chain cap dives together.
Exactly.
I don't know how to vector. I like when Fearsome Fire would say, I'm gonna vector now. I'd say, you do you, Fearsome Fire. But I've never known how to do it myself. But I feel like I could learn. I just think there's a really interesting core movement in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I also really, I personally, I really like Flood. I like the Sunshine controls a lot more than I was expecting to.
Hmm.
64 has its charm, but I think that it's a little bit clunky in comparison. Obviously, it's older and it's the origin of 3D Mario, so whatever.
Yeah.
But in comparison, but it's interesting to have a an ability like Cappy that is so intrinsically tied to movement, but also the power-up system. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to go back to something real quick. You said something in our first recording that you can't go to waste. Is the idea of this game you can just go from point A to point Q, and I
I
thought
did
that that
say
was the
that.
funniest shit ever. And it has to be said here that that quote has to be on record. Um, but where the fuck was I going? Hold on, I spun back too far.
Cappy tied into
Yes,
power-ups,
to
into
power
movement.
ups.
There we
Yes.
go.
So some of my favorite power ups in the Mario series are things like the blue shell from New Super Mario Bros. DS,
It
or
fucks.
the frog suit from Super Mario Bros. 3.
Kind of fucks.
Power ups that completely change the way you interact with the level,
Yeah.
change Mario's moveset, and allow you to do different things. And almost all of the captures in this game give you that ability. They are not only organic in the way that they interact with the world because they are an enemy and they feel like thematically tied to the world, like using the Pokio in Bowser's Kingdom, like using the Uproot in a Wooded Kingdom. They allow you to interact with the world and have different degrees of defense and offensive abilities. And I think it's just such a cool concept. And it's power ups plus. You're not just shooting a fireball. You can't just do that. You have so much more in terms of how it affects your gameplay. It's just next level stuff. And it's really, I just think it's so much better than the power up system. It kind of makes it obsolete.
Yeah, it's a critical look at the heart of power-ups and figuring out how to organically add that to a 3D Mario space instead of kind of superficially just throwing them in and seeing what happens like Galaxy does. I think that's one of the
Yeah.
Galaxy's weaker points. How you get the ice flower, the fire flower, and they're fun, but they're limited use. They feel like they've kind of been shoehorned in. This feels organic, not only from an aesthetic perspective, but from a world perspective, a gameplay perspective. It's really, really nice stuff.
Yeah.
And that's basically my thesis about this game. Even in light of the issues I have, I just think it's one of Nintendo's most creative, and I think it really is another one of the Switch's successes in looking at a franchise, understanding its appeal, understanding how to take that appeal and apply it in a new way. And I'm just excited that we got this is the game we got.
Yeah.
People say Sunshine 2, Galaxy 3, whatever, but I'm happy this is the game that we got,
Yeah.
and I'm happy for how it evolves the franchise.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, a lot of my favorite things about this game, why it's my favorite Nintendo game, why it's one of my favorite games of all time, why I like consuming content about it. I mean, uh, Video Game Donkey's review of this game just fills me with joy. It gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. And that
Yeah.
is a video based on this game. There's such a passion surrounding the people who really do enjoy this game in a way that I am connecting to, like people connected to with 64 or Ocarina of Time back in the day. And it just makes that like special to me. And especially this game just has so much going for it in terms of looking into its development history, into the detail and design that they went into with everything. I mean, there are just so many fun things to look into, like the music. I like watching the music being recorded. I don't know if you've watched any of the live recording
No.
sessions, but they have live recording sessions for Shiveria Town, for Lost Kingdom, what's it called, Forgotten Isle, for Luncheon Kingdom. By the way, they used pots and pans and knives on cooking boards for that music. And it's just, there's so much in terms of the detail that they put into everything and just the thought and care that went into it. It just makes it next level. And I don't know. I love this game so much, and I can talk about it forever.
It's an embodiment of what Nintendo does right. And even in light of its missteps, those don't take away from what the game accomplishes.
Yeah.
And while I think what I personally consider its missteps push it down my list of favorite 3D Marios,
Yeah.
I'll always look at this as a core example of why Nintendo still is vitally important to the industry and what they have to offer. I really just think it's a very special game.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few things that I can just rapid fire through, because this is a retrospective on the game. And 3 years later, we got to talk about these things. I mean, the implementation of 2D sections, bringing back the nostalgia of 8-bit Mario into a new context, making it feel unique. It doesn't really feel thematically coherent. It doesn't make any fucking sense, but it's damn fun. And it allows you to have a new spin on 3D platforming when you are going around things, a lot like Fez, which is a game I like a lot. It plays with your idea of perspective, putting 2D platforming into 3D space. It allows you to interact with the levels more. If there's just a flat wall, maybe there's something behind it, and that's its own level that you can go through. I think that's really cool. What else? Oh, geez, I had something I can't remember, but I just, man.
It's a game.
I wish I'd taken notes on this. I've taken notes on a lot of games, and that's where I am able to rapid fire through my points. But I'm going to be playing this game more. I played it for about 3 hours today already, and I'm in Lost Kingdom right now. I have enough moons to leave, so I can go head up to Metro Kingdom, dick around in New Donk City, experience that finale. The New Donk City finale. That is just a special moment in video game history. Good God.
The last thing I want to touch on.
Yes.
And we should have talked about it earlier, but it makes sense timeline-wise, so we talked about it last. Luigi's Balloon World.
True, yeah.
Fucks.
Yeah,
I
good.
love Luigi's Balloon World. I think that is such a creative implementation of multiplayer in the context of the game's mechanics. I really hope we see that idea expanded upon, because it does feel a little bit tacked on, because it was. So I'm really excited to see that more organically added into the experience, because even as a bonus, I played a lot of fucking Luigi's Balloon World when that came out.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you kind of reminded me of something. One of the things I kind of wanted to touch on is this game's creativity in terms of diversity in mini games. There are mini games in this, and they're not just like, oh, you can compete with other people. You can completely enter a new kind of game mode where you're doing the RC car, or you're doing the Koopa races, which have leaderboards. And I think that it makes each challenge that does have that aspect to it just a little more special. And I think that's really fun, as you say, implementation of multiplayer, because I don't necessarily really want a 3D Mario game that I can play with 4 friends, but the fact that there is some sort of connectivity, I think is really fun.
Yeah, I think it's a smart way to integrate multiplayer.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if have you played 3D World?
Yeah, I've played a good amount of it. Boink.
I'm very excited for that Switch port, because that's the right way to do 3D Mario with 4 friends. But this, I think, was a great way to do 3D Mario with one friend, yourself.
And Cappy.
And Cappy. Shout out to Cappy. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all I have to say. Play Super Mario Odyssey. If you're watching this video, you've played Super Mario Odyssey. If you own a Switch, you've played Super Mario Odyssey. Everyone's played Super Mario Odyssey.
But
play it
on the off chance you haven't, like the guy on the other side of the wall there, I made him play like Cap Kingdom once, but then he just gave up. That's how he is with most video games. But I'm gonna try to get him to sit down and put a little more effort into this game, because I do think that it's a super rewarding game to want to get into, to want to explore every nook and cranny, to want to get good at the movement, which is so natural and fluid and on a next level compared to a lot of its contemporaries. I mean, going and playing something like Ukulele or Hat in Time, which are good games in their own right, but you just coming off of Odyssey, just, man. And this is how I feel people felt about 64. People felt about the original Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario Bros. 3, that they just set a new gold standard for controls, for move design, for world design, for just expanding the genre and setting it on a next level. And I'm really interested to see how this influences games in the future and the Mario series as a whole.
Hopefully we don't have to wait too long to find out. It's been 3 full
That's
years.
true,
I'd
yeah.
anticipate maybe 2021 we could get an announcement or something.
Oh yeah.
Who knows?
Oh yeah. I'm
Who
here
knows?
for that. And we will be likely reacting to that as we record our reactions to things. Can't wait. Can't wait. But thank you much for everyone joining.
Much thanks.
Thank you for everyone for joining us. Super Mario Odyssey is 3 years old. In 18 years, it'll be able to drink. 15 years, I can have sex with my copy of Super Mario Odyssey.
Oh, all right.
And we'll see you guys then in 15 years.
I'm imagining how that would work. I need you to draw me a technical diagram of that.
Sure, yeah. I'll work on it for
Sounds
the next
good.
15 years.
You can go fuck yourself.